On this episode of the John 1911 podcast, we do something a little bit different. We have a special guest named Danny. He's a regular on the website and the Facebook page. And normally Danny and I have private conversations regarding politics and things in the news. But I decided let's go ahead and do it in public. So let's welcome Danny and enjoy the show. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Marky and Danny on a special episode of the John 1911 podcast. How's it going, Danny? From switching from an iPhone 0 to an iPhone, what did you switch to?
Well, they wanted my phone for the Smithsonian when I walked in, but I figured I would keep it. Who knows? It might be worth something to me.
So is it actually, now be honest, you just didn't want to give it to them because you were afraid they were going to sell it to the Chinese to get in all your stuff. Now, did you actually have an iPhone 1 or the original iPhone?
Yes, I had the original iPhone. In fact, my contract was up over 8 years ago, so I think I was ready for an upgrade.
Okay, so for the listener that doesn't quite understand here, so we record these podcasts usually on the internet, and so I do it through the iPhones. And I reached out to Danny, and I was like, "Hey, Danny, you may want to be in a podcast because you and I have always had these great conversations, in private." And I'm like, we talk a lot of politics and geopolitics, and I said, "Well, Danny, do you have a Droid or an Apple?" And he goes, "I have an iPhone 1." And I didn't know what that meant. So, and apparently you legit had the original iPhone until what, last week?
Just a few days ago. A few days ago when we were on vacation, we walked into a provider. I don't know if we could use the proper name, but we walked into a T-Mobile, my wife and I, and they actually have a special, everything unlimited for $60 a month, and that is including your spouse if they are both over 60.
So not only are you getting like going from an iPhone 1 to an iPhone, what did you get?
Well, I walked in to buy myself an 8. But after being married 46 years, my wife was not going to let me have the better of anything new. She walked out with an 11.
She has an 11, and what did you get?
I got the 8.
You do have the 8. Okay, so that's a hell of a jump. So, like you're like, I don't even know what we pay for cell phone package over here at the Armory, because we have staff, and then we have like a hotspot, and then we have some cellular backup stuff or some other things. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month. Like it's probably more than $300 a month. So it sounds like T-Mobile's got a hell of a deal going on.
Well, I guess age does have some privilege.
Yeah. So how you been? What's going on with you?
Well, when we were on vacation, let's just say it was 92 degrees every day. And then we came back to the wrath of Mother Nature here in the Midwest, where it is now snowing and 32.
You have, because you're outside of Chicago, right? I won't want to say exactly where, but we can say basically outside of Chicago. You have snow up above me?
Yes.
Okay. We have it's been raining here for like 3 or 4 days. It's been a swamp. So I mean, if it's cold, are you probably getting a fair amount of snow, right?
Yes, we do.
Wow.
We do. And personally, I hope I never see it again. But unfortunately, it's just part of the recipe for the Midwest living.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to some cold because it was so hot this year with the bugs on the range. I'm actually looking forward to killing a bunch of them. So I'm hoping it's like a crazy cold year. So next summer is a little better. I know a lot of people don't understand that, but if you have a really harsh winter, like super harsh, it makes the summers more bearable.
Yes. I have a question for you that I really don't understand, but does the colder weather versus the wet weather affect deer hunting in any way?
I mean, Freeze is the professional hunter around here. I'm the baby hunter, but when it's raining, deer will sit. Like they don't like to be rained on anything else. So, if there's actually rain coming down, unless they're starving, they will hunker down and wait. So, because deer they don't like to be wet, they don't like to be cold. They also like to be able to hear. And so if there's wind, my understanding is, I could be dead ass wrong, but if the wind, they can't, if it messes with their hearing, they can't hear stuff coming up on them. And I think the rain also drizzling on the leaves affects that as well. So unless they've been hunkered up for days and not eating, they will tend to sit when it's raining.
Got it. Got it. Well, let's get into a little bit more of my forte into the world of politics. Today, I was watching I'll say phony impeachment inquiry vote, and it was pure political lines. I don't know if you caught that or not.
I did. I've been in meetings most of the day, and I mean, I saw some headlines that I guess all I've seen is in the House, all the Dems supported it except for two, and none of the GOP guys supported it. I don't. What did they vote on today? It wasn't to impeach. Was it the parameters of it or something?
It was a resolution to start an inquiry, like you had said, not a formal impeachment vote, but the inquiry is pretty much going to be a kangaroo court with Schiff and those people running it. Supposedly, they are not allowing the Republicans on the board to call witnesses. Only Schiff can. They are not allowing the Republicans on that committee to interview witnesses, supposedly. And they are not allowing the Republicans to have legal representation in any way. So basically, if Schiff decides, I don't want this witness that the Republicans want, can't have them. If Schiff decides, I don't want this lawyer that the Republicans would like, or a rebuttal witness, they can't have them. So that's why I'm calling it a kangaroo court.
So is it okay? So it wasn't clear to me, because I know that this initially had started as closed hearings. Are they still planning on doing this as a closed hearing, or is it going to be an open hearing? They're just not going to let the Republicans run it.
Supposedly, from what I have gathered, it's going to be open, but with the parameters so against the Republicans, it's just may as well be closed.
Okay, so what this looks like to me, and my political experience, is this is phony, because this isn't actually impeachment. What this is a dog and pony show to throw a bunch of mud around to slam Trump, because what they have to do is the House has to rule on impeachment, and then they vote to impeach, and then it goes to the House, and then they have a trial, and it goes to the Senate. The House rules on it. Did I misspeak? The House rules on it. It goes to the Senate. They have to have a trial before all the senators. And there's a group in the House that's the prosecutors. There's a group in the House that's the defense. And the Chief Justice presides over it. So this doesn't even look like we've started down that road yet. And when this all kind of came up, the first thing that came to mind is it takes about a year to go through an impeachment process. And it is still, as of today, it's Halloween, October 31st. It is 1 year and like a week or 10 days until the next 2020 election. And you are familiar with the phrase, just as I am, October surprise. And so what they can do is, this is all timed. So at the last minute, say in October, they can start releasing stuff or leaking stuff and so harm Trump right at the end. They're hoping that he could depress his numbers enough that maybe it'll push whatever communist candidate happens to get the nomination across the finish line. So this looks to me like a part deux of the Russian investigation, because the Russian investigation was nothing but a leaky sieve with unverified stuff that the New York Times can run breathless headlines every 2 weeks, like today is the day and tomorrow is the day. and it is just a mechanism to harm Trump. I don't think this is even real. Yeah, this doesn't look like real impeachment to me.
Though, what the Democrats fail to see, in my opinion, there's two sides to every coin. This could also be an October surprise for the Democrats by blowing up in their face, by the silent majority figuring, hey, enough's enough out of this, and rally the Trump voters even more.
That is true. I think, let's see what we're really looking at here is, you know, there's two issues here, okay, politically. So the first issue is the Democratic field is in trouble. Um, you know, Bernie Sanders is not. Bernie Sanders is kind of a wreck on the Democratic Party. He's not really a Democrat. I mean, it's interesting. The Democrats, when Bernie helps them, he's a Democrat. When Bernie hurts them, he's not really a Democrat. Okay. And then you've got Joe Biden, which is their version of Jeb Bush or Mitt Romney, that nobody really likes. I mean, they all respect the man, but nobody likes him, and he's not doing well. And I think Biden was so vulnerable. I think that's why he held off. Like, I think they basically bullied the man into running. And then, some of their promised land candidates, like Kamala Harris, like the one that I was really afraid of on the Democratic side, because I'm going to caucus as a Republican. I'm not an ultra religious conservative, but I'm a Republican. And Kamala Harris is the one that I was like, holy shit, you better watch out for her, because she's attractive and she's smart and she's a prosecutor, and she should be able to string two sentences together and make an argument and debate. And she comes from California, which is a big powerhouse for Democratic money, and she should walk away with this. And she is just turned it. She's like, what was it, yesterday? I believe they came out and said that she's had massive layoffs. She's probably going to run out of money here within the next couple weeks. She's done. She's out.
Well, what I think had hurt her is that they had several videos of her past practices. Now she tried to become more mainstream, maybe even more ultra liberal, but her past practices on video showed up against her. And when you change horses midstream like that, especially in today's electronic age, things are going to surface. I think that's what hurt her. That, of course, that's just my opinion, but how can you hide from your past?
I remember she had shown up. There's a big radio program in urban radio morning show called I think it's called The Breakfast Club, and it's got like Charlemagne the God and a couple other people. I don't know. I assume it's based in New York, but it could be in another large city. But it's going to definitely be in New York, Chicago, Atlanta, maybe LA. But I'm thinking it's East Coast. And so a lot of Democrats will show up there. Like, I think actually when Hillary Clinton when she made the comment about what do you keep in your purse, hot sauce. Remember that? Remember when she did that and they were like, really? And she's like, is it working? That, I believe that even happened on the same morning program. Kamala showed up a few months ago, maybe it was even a year ago. She showed up and she's talking about smoking weed and all this stuff. And she, they basically set her, they didn't, I don't know if they realized it at the time, but, she's a prosecutor, put a lot of people in jail over marijuana. And she's talking about, yeah, I smoked weed in college, trying to be hip and cool. And they really kind of unraveled her with the black community. It's really interesting. Like Kamala Harris on paper, like all the things that I admitted about Kamala Harris, the one thing I forgot to say, oh, by the way, P.S., she's black. But like, she can't carry the black vote. The blacks hate her. That's not like something I'm pulling out of my ass. Consistently in South Carolina, she was polling like so low with the blacks in South Carolina, which is kind of the firewall at the Democratic Party. Because you go Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, it's like, what the hell is she even in the race for? It was just horrible.
That tends me to believe that let's say it this way: is the black vote beholding to Biden because of the Obama connection. Is that possibly why she is polling so low? People really don't like a lot of change, I'm thinking, and they connect the dots with Biden and Obama, and they figure he's going to be a reincarnation of redo of Obama.
Well, it's undeniable that Joe Biden, part of his appeal is he basically stands up there with his like high beam teeth, which I'm super envious of, and is basically like wink, wink, Obama. And it's like, and the polling numbers show, I believe, within the Democratic field as it currently sits, he polls better with the black community on the Democratic side than any other candidate by far. Here's the thing, Joe Biden, like I have to look at the numbers, but Joe Biden, he can do poorly in Iowa. Then they have to go to New Hampshire. And the thing is, he's from the Northeast. He should do well in New Hampshire, but the argument he could make is Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are also from the Northeast, and they kind of took his votes. But Joe Biden's firewall is South Carolina. He could get hammered in Iowa and New Hampshire and still take it home in South Carolina. And the black vote's what's going to do it for him.
But another theory I have, another theory, of course, it's just mine, is it the all the king's men theory. When it came to Beto saying we're going to take your guns, a lot of them all jumped on. When it came to Bernie saying 168 million working Americans are going to lose the health care they have and go for Medicare for all, a lot of the candidates jumped on. It seems none of them have their own thoughts without the rest of them jumping on for talking points.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Beto. I mean, look, I think Beto's it's got to be hard for Beto. It's got to be hard for Kamala Harris because, just as I said, Kamala is holy shit. Like very early on, it was like, holy shit, this girl's coming. Everyone was looking at Kamala before this campaign even started this season because it's like she's the one that's up and coming, kind of like Nikki Haley on the Republican side. And so she went from the golden child to this week. She's slashing her staff because her run rates are so horrible. She doesn't have any money. Beto has the same problem. It was just February of this year. They were talking about Beto like he was Robert F. Kennedy. Like it was terrible. I mean, Beto is, or Robert Francis O'Rourke, his real name. Beto could be a case study in like mental breakdowns on people that did you ever see like a hillbilly that wins the lottery and then like they spend a fuck ton of money on like hookers, cocaine, and Corvettes, and then they lose all their money and they're like, it's almost better that they were never rich to begin with. Beto mentally has never recovered or adjusted to life post Golden Boy. And so he flails around. Even when he talks, his arms flail around like he's some kind of like pimply faced 15-year-old kid. Like there's just something wrong with the dude. And he just says anything to try to get something to get in the newspaper, hoping he can get a second look. And
exactly,
it's really sad. It's really sad.
I agree. He wants to make himself relevant of no relevance, and it's not there.
Yeah, and so but like circling back to the impeachment, it's like so Biden's collapsing, and here's what like a lot of the people in the media they won't really talk about, but Elizabeth Warren, let's just be honest, she's now the front runner, but this is her first time that she's ever really been the front runner, and she's been a front runner maybe for like 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. So I'd say about 10 days, and it hasn't been going well for her because when you're the fish in the barrel and everybody's blasting at you, you have to hold up to more scrutiny. The front runners, that's why these people come up and they fade, and so but a lot of the high dollar Democrats, especially the ones that work in New York on Wall Street, they have been saying that, they're freaking out about Elizabeth Warren because they think she's AOC, and she's been privately going around. This is indisputable. It's just not published in the mainstream news, but it's a known thing. She's been going around all the big donors in New York, having private meetings, saying, "Look, I'm from wherever she's from, Massachusetts or something. I represent, big money people, big business. I'm on your side. I'm not totally crazy, I promise. I'm just pretending to be crazy." And so, but a lot of them, even after they met her, they publicly came out and said, if she gets the nomination, we're not going to support Trump. We're not going to give money against her, but we're going to sit this one out. And there's even some that are even like, I'm going to give money to stop her. Which is why you hear grumblings, why Bloomberg's maybe Hillary will get in, or maybe Bloomberg will get in. The reason you keep hearing rumors about Bloomberg or Hillary, or even every once in a while, like about every 90 days, you'll hear Michelle Obama, is because the Democratic Party's they're freaking out because they don't have not only are they afraid that 2020 is going to be a shit show for them, and they think Trump should be super beatable, and on paper he should be, electorally wise he should, but they're afraid that they might lose control of the Democratic Party. That if the Warrens and the AOCs and the communists and the people that want to, take everything and wreck the wreck things, they're like, Donald Trump is not a Republican.
No, he is not.
He's not.
No,
he's not a Republican.
Donald Trump is a businessman, of which he plays the part very well. And this gets back to what we were talking about earlier with the October surprise. I'm just surprised myself that the Democrats and the powers to be within their party put all their eggs in one basket. That is just beyond comprehension to me.
What do you mean? What do you mean they put it all in one basket? Who did?
For trying to pull the October surprise on Trump, thinking and signing on to the Democrat theory that this will let us win next November.
Wow. Go ahead.
I still say it's going to be an October surprise, but good for the Republicans, because the silent majority elected Trump last time. There's still a lot of silent majority anti-communist, anti-socialism type things that I believe are going to even come out more so, because if you look at Trump's first 3 years, it's get him on this, Stormy Daniels, the Mueller report, the nominating Kavanaugh, anything that is a headline and talking point to tear Trump down, the Democrats have done it. And I actually know that from people I've talked to, they are fed up with the whole scenario of the politics thing. And I think Trump is even going to pick up states that he lost last time.
Look, I don't know if this is true because I'm not a pollster, but people smarter than me, they all claim that Trump won the election electorally because of, and the number changes. You'll hear between 50,000 and maybe 88,000 votes in 3 or 4 states. Basically votes in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. But there was a small group of people that broke for him that made, that if they don't break for him again, here's the thing. So Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And I've talked about this with Freeze, and our listeners have heard me say this, the night of the election with Hillary, I just went to bed because it was my whole life I've heard all this horse shit to how Republicans are going to carry Pennsylvania. And it's just no disrespect to Pennsylvania. Euro-Optic, I love you guys, but, fucking Pennsylvania is, they never go Republican. And it's part of the reason why the Democrats have pulled Biden into this election is they look at him as more of a moderate Democrat, and he can, he's from Scranton, Pennsylvania, I believe, and so the idea being he could carry Pennsylvania. Maybe there's some fantasy that maybe he could carry, Texas, which isn't going to happen, at least not this cycle. But it's, these fantasies that, a guy like Biden, could maybe, he can hold on to some of this stuff. But the thing is, if the Democrats, like, for example, like right now, to go back to Elizabeth Warren has come out. This is Elizabeth Warren's I have a plan. Elizabeth, I have a plan for that Warren, but she doesn't talk about money. She came out and she said, I'm going to ban fracking on day one. That right there, that comment right there should mean she loses Pennsylvania. Fracking in Pennsylvania has made that state rich. And if the people listening to this don't know that, just talk to somebody from Pennsylvania. The amount of jobs there are in Pennsylvania. When it's like America's become a net energy exporter, one of the big states you can give big thanks to is Pennsylvania. And it's like, how can if Elizabeth Warren gets the nomination, how can they carry Pennsylvania? It's like, but here's the thing, Trump shouldn't win Pennsylvania again. But apparently that's why they're freaking out over Warren, because it's like, well, she can't win Pennsylvania. And if Trump wins Pennsylvania, maybe he'll the best state of the three, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, he probably has the best chance of Wisconsin. Now, I would like to think that he could carry Michigan again, with all the,
what is
USMC.
There, like 21 electoral votes or something. It's up there.
Yeah, but it's like the like the USMCA and because they got rid of he wants to get rid of NAFTA. The Democrats won't pass USMCA, all the auto jobs in Ohio, all the auto jobs in Michigan, auto jobs, I think there's some in Pennsylvania. And it's like, without Biden, maybe even Michigan's in play. It's like, that's why they're doing this. They're doing this fake impeachment thing. But, it's not really impeachment, because
do you really think the average guy that gets up, goes to work, comes home, supports his family, whatever, is going to buy into these liberal Democrat ideologies? I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
No, I mean, like, what is it? Like Elizabeth Warren, I have a plan for that Warren. Somebody, just every time she says, I have a plan for that, and they total up what her.
Yeah, I have a plan, but with no substance.
Well, no, they've actually been like, okay, we should ballpark what that should be, and they've worked out the numbers, and it's like, I think it's $40 trillion of I have a plan for that. I mean, wow. Last time I checked, I think the U.S. Treasury brings in $4 trillion. I think it's $4 trillion annually. I mean, it's like it's nuts. I mean, and like, okay, here's your question. So, like, another way. So you're like, does the average person at home buy into these plans that they're all talking about, or taking rid of your AR-15 or all this other kind of stuff? Well, look at the impeachment probe here. Okay. So what do we really, I love this phrase, quid pro quo. It's almost become, quid pro quo has become the news media's version of situational awareness. It's vomit to just gloss over something because they don't know what they're talking about. So let's say Trump did what they say he did. Let's just assume that for the sake of this conversation. What does that actually mean? Okay. So the media, their argument is Donald Trump. We even have strings in our form. We have U.S. laws that say, and specifically even for Ukraine, that say we're not going to give you money for things if you're going to use it for corruption. But we give money to countries so we can have access and influence. It's smart diplomacy. It's better. It's always better to send a dollar instead of sending a Marine or a bullet. So, send a dollar instead of a Marine or a bullet there. But So the argument is Donald Trump is the chief executive and the president of the United States. His Justice Department and his administration can research, can investigate, can make sure people are in compliance with corruption and the illegal activities associated thereof, unless he could potentially benefit from it politically because the person who's doing it is in the opposite party. That's actually what they're saying. Like, a Republican cannot investigate a Democrat, is what they're really saying here. And it's like, well, wait a minute here. It's like, well, these guys went to Ukraine and did all this nonsense. It's not that, like, Trump has gone there to do all this stuff. I mean, it's just bizarre.
It amazes me how the MSM, the mainstream media, has shifted focus everything to the Trump phone call, but conveniently leave the Biden and his son out of what the phone call was about. It's always Trump, Trump, Trump. They do not dwell whatsoever on the Biden issue
because they don't want to. Now, look, I'm gonna give the other side a little bit of a bone here on Trump, because I saw a side of Trump the other day that I was literally like, holy shit, dude, will you please shut up? Trump was talking about Baghdadi. He was giving his presser. And, he's talking about, he died like a dog. And, that's all fine. That's Trump.
He was a whiny bitch when he died.
Yeah, Trump uses perfect words, and which is totally fine. It's like he's got perfect words. His phone call was perfect. Everything's perfect. He's got perfect words. But then
it's huge.
It was huge. And I'm watching him, and I remember he started trailing off talking about how in one of his books or a couple of his books, he predicted 9/11, and he was talking about Osama bin Laden before and how they have to do something and all this, and I don't get credit. And I remember watching this and just being like, I mean, look, that may be true. All that may be true.
He has the Svengali syndrome.
Well, I know I mean, I believe it to be true because Trump is one of these people. He's just blessed. But the thing is, it was like, I remember just watching it going, if I actually had to work for Donald Trump, like if I was in his administration, I had to come in and sit in the Oval Office or sit on a conference call with him. If he does that all the time, that would get very tiring for me. I would be like, dude, we're here to talk about the fucking budget. Shut the fuck up. I mean, it would be difficult for me to not be like, shut the fuck up. It was a moment where I was watching Trump and I thought it was the worst Trump I've seen in a long time. Nobody really picked up on it too much, but for me, it was like, oh man.
He had a captive audience.
But
you have to look at it that way.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's the thing. Like, I remember when the Kurd thing happened, and like and the way it was being spun, and this is an example of a couple of these things where it's like, man, this looks really bad on Trump, and because a lot of people don't really understand a lot of the particulars of the Kurds, the PKK, the YPG, the Kurdish group that's in Iran, the Kurdish group that's in like Armenia, and it's like they don't understand a lot of this stuff, and it didn't look good. And I remember just thinking to myself, well, I've learned through observation to not bet against Trump, because I've learned through observation that he just somehow he gets through this stuff. Whereas like if it was Mitt Romney, you'd be screaming at the television like, open your fucking mouth, make the fucking argument. Where Trump, it's just like, well, he's a big boy. He'll get through this somehow. And it wasn't goddamn a week later, wham, they're whacking Baghdadi. And it's like, well, no one's really talking about the Kurds anymore. Like no one's really talking about Syria anymore.
But Trump is the ultimate in being a professional troll. He just throws stuff out there to see what sticks and then rides with it the whole time, sitting back laughing, because these people are so hateful towards him. It's just, I know that he gets some kind of kick out of it. He has to.
Trump, oh yeah, Trump's. I mean, I'll bet you Trump's Twitter account has taken 15% off the value of Comedy Central, because I mean, it is the thing. If you like Trump, if you're a pro-Trump guy, and I'm basically a pro-Trump guy. I mean, I don't believe Trump is a pro-gun. Trump is a New York businessman that wears fancy French shoes. He and I don't have a whole lot in common. But his Twitter account is funny as hell. His Twitter
Yes, it
account
is.
is amazing. It's just because, like, you can tell it's so refreshing. You can tell he does get up at some point and have his executive time. You can tell Donald Trump watches Fox News. He watches CNN. He absolutely watches Fox News and watches CNN. It seems to be that Trump watches Tucker Carlson at night. He watches
Hannity.
I guess he watches Hannity, but I know he watches Tucker, and I know he watches whatever that morning show is on Fox News. He seems to watch that. And I can't remember what else it is, but you can tell it's like almost real time. He starts, Twittering stuff. And I actually would be very curious to know, after it's all said and done, how does Trump handle his Twitter account? Like, does he have a device, or does he dictate it? Or is it like a computer terminal, or is it a disabled phone, or is it one of his special? Has the NSA given him one of those pseudo encrypted phones? That's got
a good point.
Yeah, I'm just curious how he uses Twitter, because all these cell phones are huge attack vectors as far as spying on people. And like the idea that President Trump walks around with a cell phone in his pocket, or even if it's the idea that President Trump is in a room where there's a cell phone in that room, from a national security standpoint, is a little scary, because he's loquacious. He motherfucker just fucking will just anything will come out of his mouth.
I'm sure his aides, type in on the Twitter account what he dictates. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he enjoys doing it himself.
Well, he does. I mean, like, look, when he trolled, like he made a big deal out of telling everybody that he didn't inform Schiff and Pelosi about the raid,
which I found humorous.
It's like, nobody would have really known that if he had kept his mouth shut. But he's like, no. Well, and here's the thing. You know what? This is an opportunity to explain how a lot of this works as far as government oversight is concerned. If I can get this all right for the listener at home, but this is kind of how this works. So you've got the House Intelligence Committee, and you've got the Senate Intelligence Committees. So, how many ever people are on them, and they're fairly, they're not super small committees. They're more than like 3 people. So what they do is each one of those committees has I guess you'd call it a subcommittee, but it's really above it. It's like the Senate Select Intelligence Committee, is it Senate Select IC, the SSIC, and then the House Intelligence Select Committee, or some version of Select in there. And what that is each one of these committees will have the chairman of the committee plus because the chairman's always the ruling party of either side. There'll be the chairman of that committee, which is typically the senior ranking person, but not always. So the chairman, and it'll be the senior ranking person by time and grade of the opposing party. And so you'll have 2 seniors from the House Intelligence Committee, 2 seniors from the Senate Intelligence Committee, plus the Speaker of the House, whomever that is at the time, and sometimes that can be a member of the committee, and possibly maybe the majority whip, which is like the number 2. And those people get like deeper briefings than everybody else gets, because there's so much spying that goes on up on Capitol Hill, and just like Leaky Leahy and all these people. So, for example, like when the Abu Ghraib enhanced interrogation, or not Abu Ghraib, but like the enhanced interrogation scandals broke out, and everybody was like, oh my God, we're interrogating, torturing terrorists. Do you remember that scandal?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and so like there was a moment when Nancy Pelosi was like, I am shocked to hear this. And I remember General Mike Hayden Mike Hayden, I think he was, I don't know if he was a director of national intelligence or if he was a director of the CIA at the time. He might have been bumped up to DNI. So basically, the head of the CIA or head of the DNI, which is above the CIA, was in the room, in the select committees in Congress, or like, and he's in a skiff with just the 4 or 5, 6 people. He was in the room when they told her, it's like, this is what we're doing. This is how we're justifying it. Here's the legal justification from the Justice Department saying what the parameters are. They were very specific about it. And then she comes out 6, 8 months, a year later, and is like, I don't know what you're talking about. And it was it's the same thing with this Baghdadi raid. And apparently Schiff is now, since he's the chairman of the House committee, he's on the select committee. And I guess the president was decided not only to freeze him out of stuff, which, he's right to do. I mean, he can do it. I mean, he's justified, but he's also used it to troll him. So,
right.
Well,
you don't think that was a Trump jab at Schiff and Pelosi, and like you had mentioned, to personally bring it out and make everyone aware, I didn't include them. That is going to eat in their craws like you've never seen. And
it's the beauty of Trump's Twitter account.
Exactly. And he is a master at trolling. I mean, it's like, well, of course, he wasn't like the Democrats or the liberals that said Baghdadi was a religious scholar. Did you see that?
Oh, my God. I mean, it's when you talk
in his obituary, I believe it was the New York Times or Washington Post.
I think it was the Washington. I believe it was the Washington Post. I believe it's the paper that Bezos owns.
Yeah, he was a religious scholar. He was a damn murderer, is what he was.
I think they, if I have to look it up, but I believe it was like reclusive religious scholar or something.
Yes.
And it's like, when you see headlines like that, then you look at the electoral map in 2020, you have to say to yourself, maybe Donald Trump could get Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin again. Because it's like, that's the kind of stuff that gets Donald Trump elected every time. And, they just can't help themselves.
I fully agree.
It's unbelievable. So,
you and I had a bet last election. And
did I win?
Yeah, I know. You know what I'm talking about.
And, no, I don't know. No, I'm talking about. I'm like Nancy Pelosi. What are you talking about?
Yeah, okay. When Freeze and I both said Trump's going to win, who was the holdout that kept saying he's not going to win? I think I'm talking to him right now. Remember?
I just admitted that I had no faith. Oh, I just admitted at the beginning of this podcast. What are you talking about? I went to bed that night. Dude, I remember when Ronald Reagan was elected, okay? I have stayed up and watched these goddamn things. And, it's like I remember when Barack Obama won. And there's a police officer I know. And his gentleman's black. He's now, I think he just retired. He's got to be retired by now. And when Obama was coming up for re-election, I was like, my position was, there's no way Obama gets reelected because you can't project all this stuff onto Obama anymore. You can't, Obama's going to cleanse all of this, and Obama's going to right all these wrongs, and Obama's going to, make the sea levels drop and the whatever change. he had a 4-year record of good and bad. Getting caught on stuff and his successes, and he had a record, and everything that he really stood for. It wasn't a theory. And I remember this police officer, he's still working patrol at the time. He goes, I think Barack Obama's going to get reelected. And I'm like, why do you say that? He goes, because I see a lot of signs. He says, I see more Obama signs than McCain-Palin signs. Or is it McCain? Was it McCain? Or no, it was Romney. It's Romney. And I see more. He said he sees more Obama signs than anything. And I was like, we had a bet with we had a bet on I think we bet like a silver certificate bill of some kind, and I lost the
Yeah.
bet. I lost the bet, and I sent him. I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm not a welcher, so I got a little card out, and I wrote a little note, basically saying, "Congratulations, you were right. I was wrong. I paid my bets. Here's a silver certificate note," and sent it over. And it was a couple years later, something had happened, and he sent it back to me with the note that I wrote originally. And I think it was because he was upset about something Obama did.
Wow.
Yeah, so I
Wow.
still have it. I might frame it one day. It was pretty interesting.
Well, I know I still owe you the steak dinner for the bet I lost against you.
Oh, and I will take that bet, and it'll be at the Capitol.
Well, I
Grill,
know.
too.
I thought maybe you might have forgotten about it, but
No, I don't
no.
forget it. No, I don't forget about the steak dinner bets. I love the Capitol Grill. Some of the biggest decisions I have ever made in my life, I have made in the dining room of the Capitol Grill in Indianapolis. That is not an exaggeration. I have had some amazing.
You even remember the place.
Yes.
Do you have a reserved booth there?
Yes, that is the Capitol Grill. Indianapolis is my jam. You know what? Fun fact. Let me tell you this. I don't know if I probably told you this. So the Capitol Grill, for those that don't know, there's like 5 of you living under a rock, is a steakhouse. It's a nationally known steakhouse chain. Very good restaurant. And they're open like lunch and businessmen's lunch and dinner, but they're primarily a dinner restaurant. The Capitol Grill in Indianapolis is the only Capitol Grill in the country that serves breakfast. Do you know why, Danny?
Well, because of being adjacent to the hotel?
It's adjacent to the Conrad. So it's the restaurant that serves the Conrad Hotel. And so the Conrad told the Capitol Grill, if you're going to be a restaurant in this hotel, because they also, I think, provide room service, you have to provide breakfast. And they were like, fuck, really? And so the Capitol Grill had a problem. Think about this. It's great. So the Capitol Grill is a brand that's known nationwide for the quality of all of its stuff. Now, you don't have to serve that quality of food for breakfast. Like steak and eggs for breakfast is not normally Kobe steak. But the Capitol Grill has a problem. They're not going to have 2 tiers of food. They're not going to have like their Cisco shit tier. Sorry, Cisco. They're not going to have their Cisco shit tier at before 11 a.m. and then have
everything
their real
will be upscale. Yeah.
Everything is upscale. You order breakfast at the Conrad or the Capitol Grill in Indianapolis, and it is the best breakfast food, best prepared you've ever had. It's unbelievable, and I think they lose money on it every day, but they have no choice because they want that hotel, and that hotel has to be able to serve breakfast and room service. And I'm sure they bend over.
I'm sure they recoup during the dinner dining hours, whatever they lost on breakfast.
That Capitol Grill was probably one of my favorite restaurants in the country, just because of the emotional attachment to it. It's probably not the best restaurant I've ever. Obviously, it's not, because I've been to some great restaurants around the world.
Well, every time I'm down in Indy, I put on horse blinders every time I drive by it.
I will make it a point, since you've called me out on this first episode of the podcast that we've ever done together, that you and I will we will eat at the Capitol Grill. And actually, fun fact for the listener, Danny is on the podcast today because Danny and I have had incredible conversations via email, via private message, via phone call. Danny and I have never met. Is that creepy?
Well, I'll know who you are when I'm stuck with a bill at dinner. It's very simple.
Well, you know what? It's about time someone else pays.
How do you do? Here you go.
Because I am always the one paying, it seems like. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's, so to the listener at home, you too could be on this podcast if you're super smart and super engaging and you talk to me. So, which I think that you are. I remember you and we had a conversation. It was all text message, and I stayed up because I was wanting to talk about it. You had asked me about something with North Korea, and I just was like, let me tell you what's going on. And I remember just being like, you know what? This is some of my best work. And it's a shame. It's a shame that more people don't see it. And that it was that conversation that made me think you and I should start maybe doing stuff together.
Well, which is fine. And trust me, from snowy Illinois, I do appreciate it. And I'm actually very much looking forward to the steak dinner because I'm short about 500 airline miles. So after dinner, I'll be in good shape.
I mean, if you whip out a credit card, I'll just go ahead and pay for it. Jeez, talk about laying it on thick. Excuse me, sir. May I have some more porridge? I'll eat a steak and you're there eating a salad.
Yeah, first class to Hawaii takes quite a few miles.
Yeah. Hey, can't your son cover you once in a while? I heard your son did pretty good.
Yeah, we should have brought him up during the conversation of Warren talking to the financial district, because he enlightens me with a lot of his business dealings, and there are a lot of his customers that are actively looking, putting it on the back burner, but actively looking how to move money around to offshore investments.
Yes. I mean, I can't go to details in this conversation, but I'm making business decisions now, trying to war game Trump winning and also Trump losing. That's smart business. I can't guarantee that Trump's going to win, and I can't guarantee that, look, here's the problem with, let's say Bernie Sanders gets the nomination, just because it doesn't look like now he's going to get it. He's had a heart attack, and his time was really when Hillary was running. But the reality is, just how the Democrats said when Donald Trump got the nomination, and all these Democrats were like, "You got to be shitting me." Republicans can make the same mistake. Don't think that if Bernie Sanders were to get the nomination, that it's impossible for him to win. Anybody that's at the top of the ticket in the general election can win.
Anything is possible, but improbable might be a better adjective, I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. That's the scary thing. You got a lot of people, like a lot of kids today, that they think socialism's great because they just have no idea. And you talk to them, they really don't know what socialism means. It's just another thing so they can get free. To them, socialism is an app on the phone that they didn't have to pay $1.99 to buy. You know what I mean? Like, they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
That's why I had to alluded to earlier that everything cannot be free. Everything cannot be free. Someone has to pay for it. And if these companies that, let's say Bernie or Warren was perhaps to get in, these companies that have their roots here in America, what is stopping them from going offshore for labor, product, whatever it is, to save their money if this turns so socialist like some of these candidates want? I see it coming. If a Democrat gets in, I see businesses going a lot of different offshore options.
Sure. Well, I mean, people talk about it's ignorance on the average American's part. Your son is probably very aware of this, and I imagine you are too. Okay, European Central Bank, the economies in Europe aren't great. Japan's been perpetually bad forever. But even when America isn't doing great, it's generally going positive. It's going, even if it's a little amount, it's growing a little bit. And there it is. You cannot discount the effect that people that have the ability to move funds out of whatever economy or markets or countries or totalitarian situations that they live in into the United States, because we have personal property, we have due process, we don't have confiscatory governmental policies. that's, I don't know how many percent of the GDP that accounts for every year, but it's not small. People, corrupt communists move money into the U.S. because it's safer here than it is in their country.
Well,
and that helps our economy.
Yes, it does.
And those people could just as easily move all their shit to Belize.
What was ironic about what you had just said, and I'm not sure if they're communists, but the country of Chile, there were several investors going with their money into the economy of Chile. Now, because of what's going on, they're pulling it out. And the same thing can happen here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Your son probably knows this better than I do, but one of the arguments I've always heard about cryptocurrencies is, again, I'm not saying I agree or disagree with this, but just as a parallel to make the point about the money in Chile and what I just described in the U.S., a lot of people that are smart financial people are kind of down on cryptocurrencies because the only redeeming value they see for cryptocurrencies is either criminal activity or tax avoid, or like money laundering. Whereas, because they recognize around the world, the currency markets are super efficient. Money is super fungible. You can move money around so quickly and seamlessly and so cheaply that, money can just flow out of a country like nobody's business.
Yes, it can.
And so, that's, we don't, the wealthy people and businesses and high net worth individuals don't need Bitcoin to get their shit out of the country. They just push a button and it's gone.
Yes, they can. Someday I would like to show you how fast money could be moved on a computer. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, I'll tell you what. This is because I remember this is a story. We'll wrap this one up because we're going a little bit long here. I like to keep it about an hour. But here's a story. So I remember this was in I can't go into all these. This was in the 90s. I had a business deal going on that wasn't going well. And I was flying across the country. And I had to change planes in the middle of the country. And instead of getting on the next plane, I stayed in the airport and I was talking to a bank, to their wire room, trying to get some money to show up that wasn't showing up because somebody was ripping me off or trying to. And, this was a big hoo-ha. Like, you couldn't call from the airplane. There might have been internet, but you really couldn't deal with bank wires at 30,000 feet in like the mid 90s. And I remember this was in the early 2000s or maybe mid 2000s. I was buying a Blaser R8 rifle from a guy in, I don't know, maybe Tennessee. No, from out west. He was in maybe Arizona or somewhere out there. And it turned out that, it was like, it wasn't a lot of money. It's like, $5,000 or $6,000 or $8,000 or something, but, not like, wire room money. But it turns out he banked at the same place I banked. So, because I went into the bank and I was like, hey, I need a cashier's check or something, or maybe do a wire and whatever. And they're like, where's it going? And they told me, or I told them, and they were like, well, wait a minute, this is the same bank we're in. Why don't you just do a in-bank whatever? And I'm like, what are you talking about? So they explained it to me, and they said there would be no fee. Literally, I'm standing at the whatever desk with the private banker. I'm on the phone with the dude on a cell phone, and I'm like, give me your bank account because you got to give it to me. They would wire it. He was like, okay. And they're telling me they can do this. Boop. And I said, now check your bank account. He goes, holy shit, the money's here. Like it was not a second.
Right.
And I was
the routing number and the account number. There it is.
I don't even think this required a routing number because it was interbank. It was the same bank. It was something. It was some within the same bank. I mean, they may have used the Swift routing number system, but they knew the routing number because this did not involve a wire. This did not involve the wire room. This did not involve a wire fee. This was something different. And I remember thinking PayPal's in trouble. I remember being like, PayPal is dead meat when this gets to be big.
if you think that was fast, you should see 19 years later technology, even with encryption, it's mind blowing. It's mind
Oh yeah.
blowing. You went basically from in bank to in bank, just different locales. Imagine going in country to out of country to different, a host of 500 banks or whatever.
Hmm.
It's mind boggling.
Yeah.
Mind
And
boggling. All with the touch of one key.
a lesson for the kids to remember. So this wraps
Yeah.
up this episode of the John 1911 podcast. If you want to see any links or stories or pictures of anything we discussed, go to our website at john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good day.
Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Say bye, Danny. Okay. See you later.
Bye.
Give him a break, everybody. It's his first podcast.